for people who maybe don't know you, I'm sure a lot of people know you. Can you just take a step back for me and tell me about the Cliff's Notes of Buddy Hammon playing Roundnet in the sport?
Yeah, sure. Cliff Notes version. I started playing in like 2011. My first tournament was 2012. My first national championship was 2014. So I've been playing for a really, really long time. I've had some success as a competitor. I won the world championship in 2022 and the national championship in 2022. And yeah, just looking to get the most out of the sport and kind of push the professional side as much as possible.
When did you first maybe look at Roundnet as something that not only you were really good at, not only you had a lot of fun doing, but maybe you could make a little money doing? And tell me a little bit about this earlier era of maybe being like a semi-pro, a semi-paid like Roundnet player.
Well, yeah, even before being like a semi-professional, if you want to call it that, and getting paid from like events, we saw an opportunity to make money within the business side of it with Spikeball, right? So we were like, no one knows what this thing is. Nobody knows what this sport or this backyard game or this product is. So we were going around on beaches and just playing because we could hold a rally and make it look very entertaining and look like show people how much fun we're having by playing it on a beach to where we're like, if we can get a little percentage of every set that we sell or everyone that we get excited about playing this and they buy a set through our promo code, we started making a little bit of money that way, which was really exciting early on. Because it was all about just getting the sport out there. And then as time kind of developed, it was some prize money because if enough people wanted to pay to play the event and the top teams get a little cash payout, awesome. We have a little money in our pocket for a hobby. And now it's grown to a point where, okay, if I can educate people in the form of clinics or videos or training or whatever that might be, since the prize money hasn't quite caught up to where where the finances are in 2024. It's trying to make money from educating and giving value beyond just how well I play is kind of the structure that we're looking at. But I think right now the thing we're falling into is trying to build a way for players to get paid when they are competing at the highest level. Hopefully that answers your question for the most part.
Before going deeper on like the player side of it. Yeah, that's great. I mean, you touched on, you were like almost like you were like an affiliate, like ambassador, brand ambassador in some way. You mentioned being an educator, like a teacher. Those are jobs that people have where they teach. They're an affiliate salesperson. I know you also, way back in the day, this is like an old term, you were a regional tournament director for the West Coast. Was another job you had. And curious how maybe those jobs compare to the job that maybe you and other high level players want to have, which is just being a player, right? Like it'd be great to,
sure.
It's cool to make money selling it, but wanting to just focus on the craft and being paid just for your own craft and your athleticism.
Yeah, it kind of ties into, if we can get people excited about just playing and buying a set for their kids, cool. Now we make money off of the sale of the product. Now, if we can get people excited about competing against each other, now I'm making money off each person that signs up for this event. Plus, being the person running the event, I'm getting paid a base amount per each team that signs up, right? And then as a competitor, I was also going to make some prize money if I did well enough. But it got to a point where trying to do both was really difficult as we got more and more teams involved, right? You have a 100-team tournament in Santa Monica, and I'm trying to get people checked in, but I also need to warm myself up, and then I need to do pool play scores, but I also have to report my own scores. It just became a lot as doing both. So there was definitely money to be made as a regional tournament director, but it reached a point where they were like, hey, you got to pick one or the other. And I was too young and healthy to be like, I'm just gonna focus on growing the events. I wanted to compete more so, and that's where my heart's been more recently too. Is not organization, but competition and growing the sport at the highest level, essentially.
Yeah, and I'll mention like on the side of being a player, you're not I guess just a player. You're also in a way you're kind of owning your own brand. I know every player approaches it differently. For you, you're very much like squarely comfortable with the role of you are an entertainer, right? Like sports and entertainment is like the actual industry that it's called in other sports, where you're the product, you're entertaining people, and in the modern day, even for other players in other sports, you have to manage your brand, you have to put up your own content, whether it's just making stories about things, whether for you make highlight videos. I would love to hear your perspective on how you've become more entrenched in doing that, and also what you get out of it for yourself. I know you talked about you were excited about playing and you walked away from the regional tournament director stuff.
Sure.
What else have you gotten out of or sought in doing more player side entertainment stuff recently?
Yeah, It goes back to, I think, of early days. Like my mom used to always film my baseball games or football games, and I would love coming home and seeing it from a different angle, right? Like whether it's myself or teammates or a certain play. Like I've always loved watching sports, but to be able to relive a moment that I have from a first person and then also a third person was really cool to me. So I've always loved going back through my footage and breaking down my own film. So the first couple highlight videos was yes, to increase awareness of the sport, but also to see myself play and things that I could improve. So it was an enjoyable creative project making these highlight videos, which, you know, anyone that's made a highlight video, they've watched themselves do cool things, but there's also a lot of low lights. There's also really funny moments where somebody says something, you're like, wait, what? Or somebody falls or trips on the net. And those are things that I wanted to include as well, because it's the highs and the lows, even at the highest level, right? There's moments where we buff a set that's in system that should have never happened. It's really funny, and, you know, it makes people remember, like, we're also humans that make our own mistakes. But it, as much as it started as like a creative outlet and something that I really enjoyed as a hobby, it turned more into something that I felt like I had to do. Like most recently, as we talked about before this recording, I put out like 4 or 5 videos in a week span, just because it was taking up so much real estate in my mind. And I was like, I have it all filmed and most of it's clipped. I just gotta overlay some audio or some music and clip out some things and change some things to get it up for the community. And it became more of like a job, even though it wasn't income generating like crazy, but it became more like a job and something I had to do, something beyond myself, which it feels like I put less energy into. It's something, it's interesting how it shifts. But yeah, it's something that I still enjoy doing in terms of clipping and just putting content out there and showing the defense and the athleticism, as opposed to, you know, I'll put the occasional serve, because there's a very rare serve every now and then that actually lands for me. But it's more about showing the athletic and defense side of it and creating awareness in the sport on that front, as opposed to the serve ball mentality, which has been really, really strong in the sport for a long time.
You're being the change you want to see in the world. I know for you, some of your renaissance in playing was in 2021 with the advent of the no hit zone. You kind of poked back around and were like, oh, this is what I want the sport to be like. And we don't need to, I guess, like dig into the history of rallies and such, but more specifically on just putting out the content you want to see. Do you feel like that is maybe part of the obligation you have to yourself of, I have to put out these defensive minded highlights and clips, because if I don't put them out, people might not see them as much. If people don't see them, then maybe they don't know that it's even possible.
Sure. Yeah, I think there was definitely motivation to shift the sport away from just serving and having it be a skill based people, or having it just be skill based athletes that were winning the sport, where it feels like serving to me feels like a golf swing, right? You can replicate this over and over and over, versus defense is very athleticism in the moment, changing your body positioning, and athleticism and hip mobility and flexibility. Like those are the things that I think make a better athlete. Not to say golf is any worse than an NFL wide receiver or anything like that. It's just they're different. And I wanted to prove to myself as well as the community that you could be elite at this sport without having the skills of a server. Yeah, did I put effort and grind my serve? Yes, but the majority of what I did was just playing clean and making defensive breaks when other teams would fail to do that. So that, yeah, in terms of the content, I wanted to show that one, that's more fun to me than landing a really great serve, because I took away something from someone that they thought they were hitting a ball past me. And sometimes I blow my own mind in terms of how I got a touch, and I watch it back. I'm like, that never should have happened. Or, wow, just sometimes it pays off just to be in the right position. And that's what I like to portray in my content as well, is these wild touches and these really exciting moments that don't happen often, while also showing and being realistic that, hey, even as one of the best defenders, touches don't happen all that often, but that's why it's fun to show when they do and really celebrate that. And yeah, like you mentioned, the no hit zone and the soft touch definitely got me back into the sport, because it was the same sport, but it was different. There was now a little more balance towards the defensive side, and something that I've mentioned to other people, which might not happen for a long time, but something I want to experiment with, is having one bounce on every possession other than the serve receive. So on serve receive, you have to use your 3 touches to get it off the net without a bounce. But after that, if you get a crazy touch and it goes behind you and it bounces, you can dive and set it back. I think it'd be really fun. Obviously, there's a lot of things we'd have to work through with surface, the surface being nice and flat and consistent, as well as not using the bounce unless it's necessary, which there's only, we talked about this before, where it's really tough to enforce that. But those are all things that I want to push forward to make the sport more fun to play and also more viewer friendly.
Yeah, I will note we tried exactly that rule set in November 2022 in New Jersey as part of like a squad tournament. The thing was
Mm,
it was a combined like 2v2, 3v3, 4v4 tournament where
cool.
4v4 you usually play with a bounce, 3v3 you usually play with a bounce. So it was just thematic to say like, hey, you can play with a bounce for 2v2. And I will note the feedback was I think mostly just like this is too different right now. And so obviously with change it's challenging. So in 2023 we did the same tournament, but we took away the bounce for 2v2. So I think it just might need a more dedicated like group to say we do want to try this and
Sure.
just see how does it compare between the status quo and having the bounce. But yeah, it's definitely challenging to figure out the right size of that rule or any other rule. But yeah, I always love trying new rules. I know you do too. You've messed around with a lot of things over the years.
Sure. Well,
Something that
new
came to
rules,
mind
but
when we were
also
talking about kind of the. Oh, go
just real
ahead.
quick. I was going to say beyond just rules, I want to say just like new content that comes out, right? Like what the Round Network is doing in terms of really high quality slow mo from different angles and seeing little nuances in the sport can really help create awareness where people just, if people are watching from one angle and it happens so fast, it's like, oh, okay, that was kind of cool. But if you really see them deliberately shifting this way and then it's their trailing hand that gets this up, it creates a more exciting viewer experience that they're watching for when they actually watch the sport live, or if they're watching a highlight video, they can pick up on these things. So it's kind of educational in that sense, but it's also just, like when you watch an NFL game and the announcer's explaining why something was as impressive as it was about a quarterback doing a certain thing or a certain catch or a movement, it makes you appreciate it more when you're watching it live. And that's something I really would love to see come to fruition in our sport, which is what I credit you guys to doing with Round Network and slow mo and all the things that you're doing in such a high quality. So those are things that are definitely going to be necessary, I think, moving forward.
I had a really smooth segue that I was going to make, but now it's a bit of a non sequitur. What do people not know about being a pro Roundnet player that someone might assume just at a surface level?
Yeah, it's interesting to call it a professional Roundnet player, right? It makes it seem like it is because professional means it is your profession in a way, in my mind, right? We're far from that.
It tends to
We are
happen.
not. Yeah, easy to see the confusion on that front, but we're not really making a living by any means. Sure, there might be some money that we get from prizes or some money that we generate from our content in the form of using that content to now encourage people to sign up for a training program or defensive masterclass and things that I've done in the past. But in terms of that solely being my job and just having to show up and play the sport, that's not how it is. Oftentimes, if we win an event, we might be in the green slightly, but more often than not, if we win the event, it's covering our costs of going to the event. So it's getting harder and harder to justify traveling really far to play in these events and get some high quality touches or high quality matches um, when financially it's not really even covering our time and the costs, especially if we get T5, which if you get T5 and you lose in 3 games late in extras in the round of 8, that's a pretty damn good day when you're playing against the top teams, but you have nothing to show for it financially. So it's tough on the professional level where a lot of the time has to come in after you play the event to make the content, create resources for other people to learn from. Otherwise, you're not really going to grow your brand. And that you can grow your brand in terms of being really athletic or entertaining, right? It could be either one. It could be educational or it could be entertainment, like we're just talking about. But in terms of the professional side, it's a lot of time invested into traveling and competing and not a lot of return on investment on the financial side. And as you get older, like myself, who's 31, going on 32 in just a few months, we have to focus more on our career and our our livelihood, if you will. And you can't get away with just hitting a ball off of a net as a hobby that pays you a little bit of money. So it's harder to allocate time and resources into that as you get further along in life.
Absolutely. I think there's so many small pieces in there, whether it's going after the prize money or going after, selling yourself, right? Selling the courses, trying to find sponsorship and getting resources to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So for you and your experience, where have you maybe felt like, hey, I'm delivering value here, whether it's to the spectator or whether it's to a brand or whether it's to, maybe it's someone who's learning defense from you as a course. How does focusing on those things maybe enhance your ability to be a better player? And what situations do you feel like it's a distraction, that it maybe isn't part of like the pro Roundnet player portfolio is how I think about it.
Well, I mean, there's different players that do different things, right? Some just play really well and make some prize money when they win. They don't put any time and effort into content. That's just not their thing. They don't feel the need to, because we've talked about they have a full-time job that they focus on to cover their ends meet, and then they treat this like a hobby, but they're playing at the highest level. Versus I've taken time to not work as much and put as much energy into this as possible to see what I can grow for myself. And I've learned that at events, there's not a ton of viewers that are like, there's definitely spectators from the event that, you can get a decent sized crowd, but most of the value comes from post-produced content. Now that could be a few different things, right? That could be uploading games and putting commentary over it. It can be making highlight videos. It could be making reels on social media that do well on a TikTok or an Instagram. But the amount of time that goes into that, creating the short form and longer form content, it's a crapshoot as to what you're going to get back. And sometimes there's intangibles about people all over the world seeing it, and you don't see the return on investment until you create a product that, like, hey, I've been watching your videos for a long time. I'd really love to learn from you. And you don't always know the impact you're having until you put something else out there, or one person has a comment or a message to you that says, hey man, thank you so much for putting these out. And you're like, oh, this has been worth it. But a lot of the times you have to do it initially because you enjoy it, as opposed to going into it with a mindset of, this is my work, this is my job. Because once it starts to transition to that, as someone that's done it, it becomes way more stressful and way less enjoyable. Versus if I knew that I was going to make a certain amount of money for each thing that I did, it'd be a lot more feasible and a lot easier to maintain doing that, as opposed to just putting it out there and seeing what happens. Hopefully that answers your question. I know it's kind of all over the place, but
Yeah, I mean, you answered the question, then of course I've got so many more. So you did a good and bad job there, I suppose, because
yeah,
just curiosity keeps flowing.
yeah,
I
please.
think part of that is you noted on, oh, like it'd be cool if I could just play and just know I'm like, this is gonna be my salary. The way that, and this is really like a small percentage of even like high level athletes. If we think about like the big four in the U.S. Those sports where players are on franchises, they get signed to salaries for contracts, and then if you want to go get a sponsorship and do this, like name, image, likeness deal, do a commercial with this brand, with this food company, with this apparel company, and you can get more money, and that's cool. But you at least have this like salary, and that's where revenue comes from the most part, is from these franchises. Whereas here, you're talking about, if I do this much work, I'm kind of like an entrepreneur, which is confusing because
Sure.
usually like entrepreneurs like, oh, I'm a pro level player, but I'm also like a business owner, and the business is me.
Mm-hmm.
The business is me playing the sport and whatever I do with it. I'm curious how you kind of see things developing, where you mentioned some players, maybe they just do their day job and they're like, this is just a hobby, that's okay. But for people that are starting to push the bounds there, what you measure up as people maybe being afraid to take the jump because there's uncertainty of how much things are, or maybe there's people getting just some self-doubt on, well, I haven't tried to sell this course before, so I don't know if it's going to be valuable to people, because I don't want to give it a shot. Maybe nobody wants to learn from me. And to boil it into a question, I'm curious, with pro players maybe teetering on the edge of this being a hobby versus it's like a semi-professional side hustle. How important is it to just try?
I think it's important to tackle it all with a mindset of, let's see what happens. Let's treat this as a side hustle, as opposed to going into it and be like, all right, I have to make my full-time money doing this, because that's way too much pressure. Versus I've been in a situation where I had some money saved up and was still making some money with online coaching. But I was like, cool, I could put this on the back burner and put more energy into this to see what happens. But it is one of those things where you have to fail and then learn from it. And if you learn from it and you change something about it and you improve a little bit, then you can build on that. Right. I reached a point where I was like, what, screw it. This could help with health and fitness or with Roundnet. And I invested in learning how to create an online course. Now, I invested in the course. I built one out, and then I was paying a monthly fee to keep the course online. But then after the initial launch of selling the course, it was like, all right, cool. I just made a bunch of money. I covered what I invested to learn the course and for these first couple months of this and that. But then as things slowed down, I kind of hit the hot leads. It became one of those things where I was like, okay, I can't keep investing in the monthly thing to maintain the course. I have to put it in like a Google Drive so they still have access to all of the information, but then just follow it folder to folder, which still works. So I had to do that, have success, but then slowly not be hitting how many people I thought were going to buy it each month or getting into the sport or continue to buy it. So I had to adapt. And so a lot of it is seeing what works. And I never thought I'd be making Instagram reels or TikToks about playing, but it reaches another audience, which then watches my YouTube videos, which then sees that I have a course and gets them into the sport. So it's really just, it's ever changing, I think, online courses or short form content, long form content. I think the long form content that I want to put out is going to change sooner than later, where it's more educational and commentary over live gameplay with slower replays, kind of like Round Network's doing. But it's really just going after it and seeing how it goes. And that could be, again, sometimes it's education, sometimes it's entertainment. You don't really know, but just be willing to adapt. Like, take it on as more of a side hustle and if you have a passion for it, by all means, go for it. If you're not passionate for it and all you want to do is just make money, you're probably going to have less success.
It's a fun take. I think like not stressing yourself out by forcing it to have to be a work thing, but also still being excited about enough for it to become a work thing is
right. It's such a tough
balancing
balance, man. And that's something I fell into the balance too far on one side where I was like, all right, this has to be my livelihood. This has to be my income. And I was doing okay. Like, I was making some money from the courses and stuff. But then when you put so much pressure on it, you would tackle it with a different energy than if you're just like, oh, hey, I'm gonna be carefree me and put this out there and people are gonna love that, versus I need to show up in a certain way and deliver this specific information. That's not how we operate at our best. We operate our best when we're free flowing and we're in a creative state and we're enjoying the process.
There's so many different things that come into that becoming successful. Obviously, you can make a great product, you can make a great training course, and like you mentioned, you're maybe trying to build out the top of the funnel of just the awareness. Where are people even hearing about Roundnet? Where are people even seeing these cool plays, getting excited, watching highlight videos? But ultimately, push has to come to shove with people need to decide, oh, this is something I care about as a hobbyist, right? We need to create more hobbyists that want to get better, and then want to actually learn from someone else in the sport that is creating content. Where do you maybe see that part of the funnel come into play? Because as I understand it, right, like that's not going after sponsors or going after big companies saying, hey, like sponsor me as an athlete. That's you going and serving community and saying, hey, I'm Buddy. I want to be a professional Roundnet player. And that requires you to be supporting me some way. By me serving you, you can also then support me. And
right.
I think, like you said, sometimes we call ourselves these pros, but we don't really have pros. And how do you approach those kinds of conversations at the micro or macro level of just like, look, like you don't have to get this course if you don't want to, but it does mean it does make a difference to me. I'm not some millionaire Roundnet player.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough balance, right? Where if people respect the years that I've put into learning the sport, right? The decade, I can speak on behalf of how the sport was way back in the day and how that applies now, and how some of the fundamentals are still the same, and how there's new skills you have to have now. It's respecting the fact that there's a lot of time, there's a lot of travel, there's a lot of high level experience that has been put into it. So you're taking everything from my brain, and for $100, $150, you can learn all of that and go apply it for yourself as best as I can translate that through a screen, which is sometimes tough. It's not the same as personal training where you're in person, you're actually making the shifts on them. That also applies to my online health and fitness stuff, where it's like I can only do things through video that gets you.
Absolutely.
But that's why you can charge less, but it's I don't know, man. It's really tough where if people want to keep seeing the content from a certain person, they have to support it. Otherwise, it's like, hey, whatever happened to Ben doing the live streaming? Whatever happened to Buddy's highlight videos? They're just like kind of gone now. It's like, yeah, people don't recognize how much time and energy goes into it. So there has to be some sort of free component for people, whether that's playing at an event and they see you play live, which this person has invested in going to. Both people have. The player who's trying to make something for themselves and the player that's trying to learn from that person. They've both invested time and energy and money to be at this event. So this person watching the pro gets some sort of benefit from watching them compete and do what they can with their body and their mind. Now, there has to be another free component in the way of giving value, be it short form content, breaking things down and showing that you're capable of teaching, or entertainment in the form of your highlight videos. People go, hey, I want to learn how to do more of that. Then you can have something beyond that actually teaches them. But without that free component and without brand awareness as to who you are and what you're doing, no one's going to sign up for that. And to touch on your point of serving the community versus sponsors and businesses, I just don't feel like we're at a point where we get enough eyeballs in a certain area for a company. Like, we're not going to get a national company like a Nike or a global company like a Nike to support something as small as Roundnet, and you're not going to get a local pizza shop because there's not enough people at this one small event per se. You might get some sort of, there's definitely some wiggle room there. Yeah, you might get a couple bucks here and there, but I feel like we're not able to give enough value right now as players and as a sport to these bigger companies to ask for thousands of dollars or even hundreds of dollars, really, because the return on investment for them, it doesn't feel, when I've done that in the past, it doesn't feel like I can give enough value to those companies, but I can give $100 worth of value to a kid that wants to learn the game and get entertainment out of how I play. So that's how I justify it in my mind, is I'd rather go after the people that are gung-ho and super excited about the sport versus a company that's like, yeah, maybe we get some business from this and one person buys our water bottle or somebody buys our love sack, which is something you've done. It's like, yeah, those are things that could apply to the community, but a lot of people aren't going to spend money on a product when they're trying to put the money into the sport and playing it and have an experience. So that's where my mindset comes in terms of working with the community versus going after a company sponsor. Not to say I haven't worked with, Spikeball as a company sponsor, but that directly correlates to what these people are trying to play and do. So,
absolutely, I think there's the piece of it of right now for sponsors, maybe they don't see the value they can get out of it, and of course, that's I think a whole separate conversation, not on the pro side necessarily, but more on the growing the sport and community side of making sure the community understands the value of, hey, if we demonstrate we are a quality audience worth marketing to, and I put it this way, I'm plagiarizing from a TD that is from disc golf, but it is, if we support brands that support Roundnet, then the brands will want to support Roundnet again. If a brand comes in, gives a couple $100, and then we say, cool, thanks, we deserve this, but don't actually turn around and then support them for supporting us, they will say, cool, so this one time I gave $500 for a Roundnet sponsorship, and then they just took it and ran. Is just not how you build more partnerships. And I definitely think of that the same way. I definitely think of it the same way with when I'm running an event now of if no one signed up for this tournament and I want to go after sponsors, I don't even know how many teams are going to sign up for this. So even if someone wanted to come table at this tournament and sell whatever products they want to sell, I can't even promise a certain quantity of audience, let alone a quality of audience, to come into this event and then support their brand back for showing up and supporting us. So that I think is a similar but slightly different conversation when I think about not sponsorship in general, but maybe the community specifically showing support for their sponsors. And you're right. When it's Spikeball or Premier Spike, I think it's pretty obvious for Roundnet manufacturers. They're we want you to use our products. We want you to have brand awareness for us, right? Even if it's not directly you're going to buy a set today, it's just, hey, just be aware of our product and maybe in the future you'll buy it. That makes sense for them. But for other companies, they're not going to track, oh, you bought some Nike shoes because you were at this Roundnet tournament. That's
right. Or cleats. There's not a lot of
maybe Nike's not the one to go after. Maybe you want to go after someone besides Nike.
Yeah, it's different than having these stats where you can be like, hey, every video that I put out is getting 50,000 views, right? If you give us a few $100 or X amount of money, it's pretty safe to say a couple of those people are going to buy this product, which is going to, whether you don't make your money back on that, but at least it's out in the world more, than it grows, because when people would buy one Spikeball set back in the day, you knew that 4 people were going to have to play, and then those other 3 are probably going to get excited and tell people, and it spreads out from there. So it's not this immediate return on your investment as a sponsor buying money, but if you have enough viewers and some people buying it and it's growing that way, then it can be exponentially worth it down the road. And that's, what Spikeball's learned, what Premier Spike knows and stuff, is if we can take some of the Spikeball players and have them play on this better product, then that will grow and take over. It's all those little things, but we don't have these tangible things where it's I know every video that I post of gameplay is going to get this many views. So we don't have as many things to deliver to a bigger company.
And in particular, it's sometimes not just views. A lot of people talk about conversions versus views, right? So even if Roundnet live streams had 1 million viewers every time, but no one ever bought anything, that doesn't mean anything, right? I'm not going to sponsor something if you're not going to buy anything. So another small step that these courses have is pushing the needle is you're kind of demonstrating that you can convert. Maybe they're not going to buy your sponsor's gear, but when Buddy puts out Buddy content and then Buddy sells a Buddy course, there's these customers that are showing up and saying, yeah, I want that. I will support Buddy because Buddy is doing this thing. And I don't think you actively say hey, by the way, guys, when you buy this course that this supports me as a player, I wonder actually if you do that, and if you were to do that more, if that would help with your conversions of just saying, hey, this helps me travel to nationals. This helps me plan my trip to
Right.
Belgium last year, right? Whatever the situation may be. Buddy and I are talking about this, and I'm like, I have to set an example. I got to ask you guys, just smash the subscribe button real quick. All right, back to the chat.
Well, I was just gonna say, like
Yeah, go ahead.
beyond that, it was more so, hey, if you give us $100, so very first time we did it, the first time Bryce and I made money as players through the community and through friends was, hey, we're trying to go to the national championship on this date. In order to do that, we need this much money for a flight. We need this much money for food and Airbnb costs. And we're just trying to go compete. If you want to support that, and this is without us making content or anything from it, it's like, hey, if you support that and you support what we've done over the last few years, for $20, we'll throw your face on the back of our jersey and we'll bring you with us to nationals.
Yeah,
right?
$20. What are you buying? You can get fake poker chips or a dispenser for Hershey's, or put your face on the back of our jerseys and we're going to nationals and we want you to come with. So if you could donate that, we'd love that. That'd be really cool.
And then we had $400 or $500 in profit that we could now put towards our flights. And it was like, cool, that now it feels like we've been covered to go do this thing. And I want to explore more of that, but it's tough to find the energy and time to do that on top of buying the flights, traveling to the events, making the content, doing it. It is a lot. So there has to be value, and there's different ways to give value. Like I said, some people just want to be part of our experience, and that's them being on our jersey. Some people want to learn from us. Some just want to watch what we're doing on a live stream. Some want to watch post-produced content. Everyone has their own thing, and you got to throw a lot out there to see what people that follow you value the most.
And not only what do they value the most, but also what can you do in a way that helps you feel energized and that you can be excited about, as you mentioned, that you have some passion for. It's maybe not the jersey fundraising thing, but for a lot of players, I think sometimes they say no to themselves in saying, I can't go ask for sponsorship. And then all of a sudden we get to a point where it's like, well, no one's really making money doing this. We maybe need to talk more honestly about getting funds into the sport and being realistic with, hey, look, like, is this actually just a hobby that I do at a high level where I'm just an elite hobbyist? Right. Or is this a situation where actually, like, to be the best, you need to be putting in Ryan Marino hours? And
sure,
I can only keep up with Ryan Marino if you support my trips and you help me put funds into training and not just happening to have been playing for a decade plus, and that I can keep up by just kind of practicing here and there and showing up to a tournament.
Money, and how money is simply just an exchange of energy is all it is, right? And if you're getting value out of my 30-minute highlight videos that I put out every now and then, and you want to see more of that, it's like, yeah, it's bizarre to be like, oh, I'm going to pay $20 to watch a 30-minute video. Because it's like, you go to the movies and you pay $20 to watch a 3-hour super high quality film, but it's different. What can you learn from this video? Are you happy to just be supporting them and give energy in the form of money so that this person can take their time and energy and produce more of that? Because without that support, people are going to start to lose interest, and there's going to be no purpose for them to do the thing anymore that you enjoy watching and you enjoy learning from. So it is tough. It's finding what those numbers are and value, and everyone has their own mindset and experience with money, and it's a tough one to navigate with different people. For some people, it's like $20, no brainer. For some, it's like, that's an hour and a half of my work, and like, I compare it to that, and it's different, man.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. I think you and I have similar mindsets about money. I guess I don't think of it so much from like an energy side of it so much as it's just a tool. It's just like helps you do things you want to do, and you can always make more. I think I share like an abundance mindset around just like, there's more money out there. Like, it's not the end of the world if I spend money here or there. Right. And the other challenge, of course, is just like where the Roundnet is as a sport is that, like, I don't want someone to give me $20 if they think about it in the terms of like, oh, it's an hour and a half of work, or like, oh, like I'm choosing between like paying for like dinner tomorrow and like supporting Buddy. Like that's right. I think you and I would agree, like, it's not like we don't want that person's support, but it's like, oh, like, no, like, please take care of yourself. Please take care of yourself. If you're in a situation where you have a stable day-to-day situation, week-to-week situation, month-to-month situation, and Roundnet's something you care about, and sure, you put money into the sport maybe as a player who buys equipment. You put money into the sport as someone who buys entrance to tournaments. You put money into the sport as someone who buys merch. Those are all things that are great. But like you mentioned, it's maybe not $20 to watch this 30-minute highlight video, but it's $20 to make sure that Buddy can sit down and pay for his editing software. Buddy can make sure he can buy that drive so that he can put all the footage somewhere. And that way, when he gets around to making these videos, it's not just one 30-minute highlight video. It's so that he can keep doing it as a thing. And ultimately, whether it's making highlight videos, whether it's making any kind of content or any kind of education, we either can have a revolving door of people who just do it for the love of the game, and we just have people come and go, or it can be a situation where, hey, like, this person's pretty good at this. Like, like, hey, like, this Jonah guy's pretty good at commentating. Like, he won't keep doing this if he never gets paid to do it ever again, right? Like, we should probably make sure he keeps doing it. Or for anybody else that is excellent at what they do. I don't mean to give just one person a shout out. I think lots of people are very talented in this community. But yeah, if we just hope that the right people show up at the right time to do the right thing, that's not really a sustainable foundation for a sport to not only have high-level athletes and have them get paid, but also grow and become a thing that can build communities all over the country and all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's taking
that's like a mini TED talk. I apologize.
Hey,
I didn't have a question there.
No, it's great though. It's like here's $20 to show that I appreciate the videos you're making and the time that you take, which is 3 nights away from your life, to travel, to sleep in an Airbnb, to buy food on the road, to lace them up and to go play for a day or two really hard and take hours of content and condense it into 30 minutes that's actually consumable. Which there's people that would argue, dude, your 30-minute videos are way too long. Cool, that's fine. Maybe you're not my target audience, but the people that really love it are excited to have those extra little things in there to like kind of break down. And sometimes, dude, I've had hour-long videos. I've had 8-minute highlight videos. It just depends what I see valuable out of each event. But yeah, people are just saying, I see value in what you're doing and how much time you're putting in, that it's not just $20 for a 30-minute experience. It's also showing appreciation for the time put in for the creators.
I'll just make one note here because you mentioned like, 30 minutes too long. I don't know if personally I've watched many of your highlight videos end to end in one sitting, but I'll just say like, it's YouTube. You can put it in your watch later playlist and you can watch it 5 minutes at a time. And as like a shameless plug, like if you haven't watched the GWR kickoff, like the very first Round Network video that's like 2 hours long, I agree with you. That is way too long. Don't watch it all at once. Just watch what you get value out of. Same thing for this conversation. We're well over a Buddy Hammon highlight video into this conversation right now. Don't watch this all at once. If you get value out of it, great. If you don't, jump around. Pick a chapter that suits you. I will put timestamps on this so that this is a little meta, but like, I'll put timestamps on this so you don't have to feel committed. I think that's the other challenge is it's like, you don't have to buy Buddy's course for $99, but if you get value out of it, like awesome. If you get value out of the highlight video, awesome. You can't respond to people that are, I can't serve the people that hate what I do. Like that doesn't make any sense. If you made your content, if you made your highlight videos based on the people that said, I hate this content, make it shorter, like now you're not excited about it and you're like serving the people that just have bad things to say. And I think it's great. It's great to take constructive feedback. I seek out constructive feedback all the time, but like, that's no way to live and that's no way to operate, is to be like, cool, let me try to make everybody perfectly happy. Yeah, and you know not everyone's going to be happy with whatever you do in life and in the world is you can only maybe 80-20 it and make most people satisfied that come into it with like, good faith, wanting to be entertained, want it to be high value, fun. But yeah, I definitely put myself on blast though by like, I can't, I try to watch highlight videos because again, like you, I still love playing and I still love trying to study and learn the game, but it doesn't mean I can do it in like 2 hour chunks of just watching 2 hours of highlight videos straight. Everybody has their own approach. How do you see in the future professional Roundnet looking? And what are some like ingredients, if you could spice things up, that you'd love to see as part of what it means to be a professional Roundnet player? Sure.
I mean, one of the ones that I've loved, which I still haven't taken great advantage of replicating, is something like Major League Wiffle Ball. Right? There's a fair amount of downtime in a wiffle ball game, but there's a YouTube channel where they just show the last pitch of each at bat. So as you're watching this 20, 30-minute game, it's always action. It's always important. Now, if we could do the same thing with Roundnet and jump around and cut out some double faults and have games that you can watch or a series you can watch in a half an hour because it's only the highest quality things, which takes a lot of editing. It takes a lot of effort. But maybe it can reach more people. I think that's the direction that people want to go. But now the issue is you need the skills of a high-level competitor as well as a high-level video producer and someone that understands the social media world and YouTube and things of that nature. So there's 2 skills that you have to combine to create this one product. Now that's 2 people being compensated, right? But I think something along those lines of having a post-produced better viewer experience beyond just highlights and entertainment. It's more watching it as if it's live type of deal, without having to go through a commercial break. Like if you're watching NFL, like part of the excitement of watching an NFL is not knowing what the next play is, but you can still get that in a YouTube Roundnet thing if you don't know the result. So it's about keeping that result a secret long enough to where people can watch it, which I know is something that we're kind of doing with Round Network as well. But I think that's what I get most excited about is, aside from just these highlight plays, which I've shown plenty of, let's create a different product that people are excited to watch and can break down and try to get more people watching those. So now we have something we can, hey, this series is sponsored by XYZ because they spent $500 and we expect 10 people to buy their $50 product from these thousands of people, like those types of things. So that's what I get excited about. Some of the companies I've worked with have just been sponsorships not sponsored, what's the word? Product sponsorships, where it's like, I'm just getting their equipment, wearing it, and it's cool to have these things for free. Yeah. And it's not financial, but it has value for me. It's like, cool. Now every time I go to the gym or I play sports, I have shorts to wear and I have plenty of hats to choose from for my outfits and for working out, whatever. So there's cool opportunities there. But again, we have to start generating some money. And I think we can do that from a good viewer experience from post-produced content.
I'm very supportive of those things. And they're definitely on, like, for Round Network, like, I don't know if they're on the roadmap. I don't know if we have a roadmap, but they're somewhere in the paths. The branching paths is one of those paths is similar kinds of content. And I know we've played with how to condense a game in a way that feels like you see all the important stuff.
Right.
And I'll also tease, this is a public way to hold myself accountable, assuming I get this published in a reasonable amount of time, that you did host an individual tournament, and I think we've done a good job keeping under wraps. Mostly at this point, everyone's hopefully forgotten how it went, with a lot of really talented players and a lot of really awesome high-level games. Like, you posted some highlights of it, but as far as who won, how did those games actually go? Like, what was the structure? Being able to take those games and now work on, okay, like, let's tell the story of this tournament. And yeah, like, this is its own little, like, nugget versus when Round Network puts up, the finals of a tournament. It's like, well, I know who won, so there's less suspense for me.
Right.
Is definitely a really cool, not just an entertainment opportunity, but also just gives value to people as its own unique thing. So I definitely, I'm a personal big fan of Major League Wiffle, their channel. They do a lot of good stuff, but similarly, the buy-in of, hey, this is valuable, hey, we want to support it, and we see the value in it is, I think, a really key ingredient in it. Where can people find you again? Like, I'm assuming no one's finding this YouTube video that doesn't already know you, but, like, how can people stay in touch with you, buddy?
Yeah, the best way is probably through Instagram, using Buddy Hammon _Roundnet is where I do most of my Roundnet stuff. I'm also doing health and fitness stuff on Coach Buddy Hammon, which is where most of my energy has been going, just to kind of build more of my business and have some of the income situated before going back into the Roundnet stuff. Because as mentioned, I was trying to put Roundnet first as more of my income and business, things like that. Gave it a really solid effort, but realized there's some things that need to develop first or more slowly before I put more energy there. So whether it's through Coach Buddy Hammon or Buddy Hammon _Roundnet, I'm always open to having a conversation about the sport or coaching or anything of the sort.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate making time. And I'm sure I'll catch you at another tournament soon.
Definitely appreciate your time as always, man. Thank you.